If you find yourself going back into your Airtable and manually copying and pasting a lot of information, there's a good chance that you are leaving hours on the table because you're not getting outputs from formulas. A lot of the data that you have already living in Airtable can be automatically created into an output based on rules that you can build, and this is all about formulas. In this video, I'm going to be showing you 7 formulas that will save you a massive amount of time and allow you to focus more on bringing in new data to Airtable and not updating the same information that you already have. So if you want to learn more about how to save massive time thanks to Airtable formulas, you're in the right place. Stick around and let's get into it. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Gareth and this is Gap Consulting. It's our mission here to help you get the full potential out of no-code tools, and Airtable is at the forefront of what we do. As I mentioned already at the top of this video, we are going to be looking at 7 massive time savers in formulas. 7 key formulas that will help you reclaim your time and stop redundant data entry. But before we get into it, I first want to invite you to join me for some free training. We've put together a free Airtable crash course that will teach you the core building blocks of Airtable. If you're interested in learning about this, grab this training absolutely free at gapconsulting.io/airtable-crash-course, and I will include links wherever you found this video. This training will allow you to get bite-sized lessons on Airtable so that you can make sure that you're leveraging all of the key features that the software has to offer. But without further ado, let's hop on into my screen. We're going to look at the first of our 7 formulas, and it's all about the REGEX or REGEX, depending on who you're talking to. So right here we have a contact email field, and you can see that I've got some funny looking emails. Now, some of them have interesting characters like the apostrophe that's included here, or the @ sign that's here. So what we might want to do, we could have several different examples of wanting to extract data, and in many cases we might want to use a find or a substitute or a find and replace, these kind of functions. But REGEX is going to make this so much easier for us. Imagine in one case that we just wanted to scrape out whatever came before the @ on an email address, essentially pulling out the username. So here that would be Gareth, here that would be aa.c''me, here it would be Gareth with the ampersand. So we can do this simply with a REGEX, and you can see how much easier this formula is as compared to a more complicated version, which would be a find, substitute, all of those really difficult functions. The REGEX can be its own language, and so it's a little bit complicated. But with the help of formula creation from AI, it becomes so much easier to use. Here, this REGEX is basically extracting anything that's before that @ symbol on an email address, and it's just keeping it. It's the username after all. So in this example, it's just pulling out everything that is in front of that @. Now, we might have another example where we know that people are keying in the wrong things in their email addresses. So we might want to make sure that we clean out an email address and extract anything that is not an actual email character. So here's another REGEX, a little REGEX replace that looks at that email address and it says, hey, I'm only looking to keep any characters that belong. So capital A through Z, lowercase a through Z, 0 through 9, the @ the period, the underscore, the dash, but anything else we're going to get rid of. And so you can see here in our example, we don't have that ampersand or we don't have that apostrophe anymore in the output. This is a great function for you to use to make sure that your data is clean, especially when you're dealing with things that should not have specific characters. Now, as I said, the REGEX can be difficult to use, but again, I didn't actually write either of these myself. I used the create formula with AI. The important thing for you to know as an Airtable user is that REGEX is possible, so that when you're prompting the AI to build the formula that you want, you can call it out and say, please use a REGEX function in your analysis and do this very action that I've described. So here, as you can see, it removes unexpected characters from the email field using REGEX. That's all you need to know in order to empower REGEX in your Airtable formulas. Now for our number 2 formula, we're going to dive into a switch function. Now switch is a simplified nested if. Now if you've used Excel formulas before, you've probably come across an if statement. If this, do this. If not this, do something else. And that on the surface is pretty straightforward, but where ifs can get complicated is when they're nested. If this, then that. Otherwise, if this, then this. And there's so many different layers within nested ifs that they just become overwhelming. Let's imagine a simplified situation where we have this deal size function, and you can see it's a drop-down. There's 4 different ways that we could describe a deal size: minimal, solid, promising, or valuable. Maybe we want to assign a dollar amount value to these depending on what deal size is chosen. If we had to use nested if statements for this, we'd need 4 different functions, or at least 3 at a minimum. If it's solid, then be 1,000. Otherwise, if it's not solid but it's promising, then be 10,000. Otherwise, if it's not solid or promising but valuable, you get the idea. This is a lot. Let's simplify it. Let's use a switch. Switch is like the simplified version of nested if, and it's so much easier to write. So first I'm just going to name my function switch, and I will bring in that switch function. And right here, the first parameter it wants is what is it going to be referencing? And in our simple case, we're looking at the deal size. So reference the deal size, and then depending on what you find there, we're going to tell you what to output in your function. So if you find minimal, then output 0. And if you find solid, then output 1,000. And if you find promising, then output 10,000. And lastly, if you find valuable, then output 100,000. So this is a much simpler formula to write. You can see that we don't have a bunch of nested if statements. We're just referencing this field, and then we establish a pattern. If we find this, then we output this. If we find this, then we output this. So create the field, and just like that, you see that we've matched our same outputs as compared to our value output here. Lastly, we can go in and update the formatting, as is true with most of our functions. And once we have that, we can get rid of our old field here that had the typed in data, because we don't want to manually update data. And now when we update a deal size, the output of the switch function is going to immediately reflect the changes of the value size of the deal. Now let's take a look at our third biggest function for Airtable simplified formula use. We are looking at the date-time difference. So as of my recording right now, it is October 19th, 2025. Here you can see I've got 3 different due dates in my due date field. Let's say I wanted to tell the user how many days away the due date is. We can do this with a function. You definitely don't want to come in and manually update a field every day for how many more days it is until something is due. Use a function for this. So we'll have the date-time diff. I'll just call it date diff. And we're going to use date-time diff here. You can notice that it's date-time, one word, underscore diff, D-I-F-F. Now, we're going from to and then the units that we want to calculate the difference. So we're going from the due date. Here's our due date field. Next, we use today's date. So this is the function that calls on today. In this case, that's going to be October 19th, but for you, it will be whatever day you are watching this video and entering in the function. Recognize that that function updates every day within Airtable. And then lastly, our last parameter is going to be the units that we care about here. Now, in our case, we care about days. We want to know how many days away a thing is, but we could do hours, we could do months, we could do weeks. Any duration of time is available here. So let's go ahead and create this formula and see what it gives us. Now, this date is October 14th, 5 days before the recording of this video. So this is an overdue task by 5 days. But this one, due on October 23rd, is 4 days away. So that's why it's giving us 4 right here. And then obviously October 30th from the 19th is 11 days. So you can see that our function is calculating correctly. And as I mentioned, today recalibrates every day. So when we log into this system tomorrow, all of these will be 1 day closer, or 1 day less, I should say. So it'll be -6, 3, and 10 if we did this on the 20th. And that just obviously continues and continues. So this gives us real updating values in terms of days until something is due. And for us, as I mentioned, we're using days as our unit of measurement, but you can use any duration of time here to get the output that you're looking for. Now let's go ahead and flip into a more complicated example where we have a linked relationship. Here I've got companies listed, 3 different ones, and we've linked to another table. So let's really quickly look at our second table. We've got 4 different individuals that we've linked to records on our first table. 3 of them are named Anthony, 1 of them is named Mark. We have 3 different Anthonys with last initials, but what we're going to care about in this example is the first name. So let's flip back over to table 1. You can see that we've got all 3 Anthonys linked here and 1 Mark. Here we've linked to 2 Anthonys, and here we've linked to 1 Mark. Now, if what we want to do is figure out the unique names, that's simple enough to do. So we'll do a roll-up field, and we will look at the first name. And you can see by default, it's going to flip us over into the array unique. So what this means is it's going to look at all the values that are linked here, and it will only bring back an instance for a unique new one. So let's create the field. And here's the example of what we get. We are linked to 3 Anthonys and 1 Mark, but Anthony is repeated 3 times. We only bring it back 1 time. Here we have 2 Anthonys. It brings only back 1. And here we only have 1 Mark. It brings back 1. This is great and simple enough. But what if we wanted to complicate this a little bit more? What if we didn't like the fact that it was separated by commas and we wanted it to just be spaces between the names, for example? How would we do that? Well, we need to combine the array unique with an array join. So on the outside of it, we use an array join, just like this. And the values that we want are these values inside here. So let's go ahead and copy this part and cut it out, and we're just going to replace values. So we have an array join on the outside. Then we're looking at an array unique on the inside, taking those values, and in this case, separating them with a semicolon. Now remember before, our names were separated by a comma. So let's go ahead and keep that semicolon just for now and look at the output. So now, in the case where we have more than 1 name, we're separating them by a semicolon and nothing else. Just that. If there's only 1, or if it's the last one in the sequence, then there is no semicolon following it. So this is what the array join does. And if we wanted a space in between our names, we just replace that semicolon with a space. And just like that, I've got Anthony space Mark, or Anthony by itself, or Mark by itself. And if I add more Anthonys here, you'll see that I only see more names here if I am not adding redundant names. If I add a name that already exists, obviously the array join and the array unique work together, and I only get 1 instance of every name. We could make that joining component whatever we wanted. It could be space dash space. I can save this, and now that is how the information is going to flow. So the array join combined with the array unique in a roll-up field is going to help you extract data in a way that's easier for you and your team to read based on your linked relationships. Now let's jump into an example that happens a lot when we are importing data from a CSV file. You might have used this very thing where you imported information and somehow it seems to be interpreted as text. And this happens from time to time, especially if your data is not purely numeric. If you have some alphanumeric strings like spaces in your data, or maybe even some letters in here, like as an example, let's say this started with a capital A, the data that you're importing into Airtable might only be showing up as a single line text or as a long text field, even if you think it's numeric. So how do you get it to do something useful for you? You have to use a formula to extract the numeric parts of it that you care about. So let's take a look at how to do this. We'll use a formula field, and I'll just call this round. And the first thing you'll want to know about is using a value function. So value is going to extract only numbers from a text string. So if we look at our numbers in text field and just wrap it in that values function, it's going to eliminate any of the letters, any spaces, any trailing spaces. Let's go ahead and add some spaces here. Let's go ahead and add some spaces here. So we've got a lot of spaces, a lot of nasty characters in our imported data, and we want to treat it as numbers, right? So we're taking that string, we're converting it first and foremost to numbers. Now we can also set the output here, and so we can use something like decimal places to the 3, and let's save that. So just like that, you can see that we are properly extracting this data and interpreting it now as numeric data, not text. But oftentimes you will have data that you are importing into Airtable that you want to a specific precision. For example, I might want this to be 100.20, and I've got this 0.19999 that is, for some reason, what I am importing. So for this, we need to add a round function on top of our value. So in front of the value, we'll open it up with round. And then we'll allow the value function to interpret the string numerically. And after that, we will set our rounding. So in this case, I might want to go to 2 decimals. So what I'm saying is, look at this field, take out any of the numeric values, and then round it to the hundredths place. Again, in our formatting here, we're going to 3 decimals. We can change that once we validate that this is doing the correct thing. So 100.1999 is properly converted to 100.20, and now we could comfortably change our formatting to go down to 2 decimal places. We know that we don't have any repeating decimals or anything rounding any longer. It is all with the precision that we expect. Now for number 6, we're going to do a find and an if combined together. Here we've got some summary data, and we might have some certain words that we're looking to flag. The word urgent, for example, could be something that we call out. If we see the word urgent in our summary, we want to flag it. Let's go ahead and start building this formula. We'll first say formula, and we will use find. Now, inside of our find, we have to say what we're looking for. We are looking for the word urgent. If we find it, we want to flag it. So that's the first parameter. Next, we have to say where we're looking. We're looking in our summary field. And if we care to tell Airtable where we want to start, like what position, we can do that. I want to start from the beginning, which is position 0. So let's create this field and you'll see what we get. Now, what it's telling us is what position it finds the word urgent in the summary. So here it is character number 78 where it finds the word urgent. Here it doesn't find it at all, so 0. And here it's character number 12. So this U is the 12th character in this string. That's where it finds the word urgent. So now that we've identified where it's finding that, we can use an if statement. So we could say if find is greater than 0, then we'll say flag, and otherwise we'll say no flag. Now this is just an example of what you could do here, and I realize I'm getting a little complicated with the if statement in addition to find, but look at the output. It's giving us 2 different things, right? It's either flagging it, saying, I found the word urgent, or no flag. And if no flag is unnecessary or redundant, we could just delete that last part and save it up, and it will only then throw flags on the field when it finds the word urgent. So in this way, we're able to look at our data and output something if we see something that needs our attention. Now for our 7th and final function of the video, we're going to look at substituting. Sometimes you want to clean up your data. The regex isn't exactly what you had in mind. You are looking for very specific fields and you want to just replace them. So here in my company name, I have an underscore or I have a dash, and maybe I know that those should always be output as spaces. So let's use a substitute function here. So we'll use a formula, and I'll just call this sub, and let's write a substitute. Now, here are the things that it's looking for. Number 1, what is the string? What is the old text is number 2, and then number 3 is new text. So the string we're looking at here is our company field. Now, what we want to substitute in this case is a dash. And then what we want to replace it with is a space. So inside of our quotation marks, I'm putting the things that we're looking for and the things we're replacing them with. In this case, just empty space. Let's create the field. And just like that, you'll see that Bravo-co has been replaced with Bravo space co. If we want to include the underscore as well, we would need to add another substitute function on top of this. So we could do them in tandem and have multiple things substituting. Now, of course, we let off with a regex. So you might find yourself wondering why we wouldn't just do it that way. Let's see what that might look like. We could do it that way as well and say substitute any special characters with a space instead of dashes or underscores from the company field. And let's say, please use regex. And we will have taken it full circle as we allow Airtable to create this for us. And just like that, it's saying, hey, I'm only looking for these characters. Anything else will get replaced. And there we go. No underscores, no dashes. Now you know how to do the same thing with both regex and substitute formulas for simpler use cases. I know we went quickly in this video. Formulas are a very deep topic in Airtable, but I hope you got a ton of value from this and hopefully learned something new. If you have questions that we did not address in this video, I encourage you to swing by our website because we have a ton of resources available for you there. We also offer free inquiry calls where we can help you and your team plan out your next steps with Airtable. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, we'd love a thumbs up and a subscription to the channel. But most importantly, my friends, keep on building.